Dope.
Hey, what number podcast is this?
99, Ivan.
My God. Hey, everyone, and welcome to, I was going to say the Overwatch podcast, but it's not. It's the Hungover podcast, number 99. Overwatch. We would think that after this point in time, I wouldn't mix up our podcast and the Overwatch League, but because I was going to the Hungover podcast live on Twitch, which is going on right now, at twitch.tv/jujubesgood and also twitch.tv/comradeBoyar. I got a little mixed up, but my name's Ivan. Over there is
Julien. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Hey. It's going to be a great one. We're going to do our yearly and third annual state of gaming.
That's true. That was our first ever podcast, the state of console gaming in 2017, right? It's a long time ago.
Yeah, you can go over and check that out on our YouTube channel, which is Hungover Gaming on youtube.com. And then we can also check out our stuff on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play. And go ahead and if you like what you're hearing, send in a rating, review some stuff so that we can get out there and talk about more things to more people. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Or if you want to join in immediately while we're talking, like right now, I mean, not if you're listening back to this in the future, but if you're in the present, you can listen and type in the Twitch chat and talk to us. Julien.
Yes.
That was the third worst opening I've ever done. But
yeah,
it's the single best topic that we will have all year.
Probably. I don't don't claim that I can see the future. I think our YouTube channel is doing very well right now. We've gotten 11 whole subscribers in the past 28 days, Ivan. Did you know that?
Thank you for Victory Royale on Tetris, my dude.
That was a great video. You can go check it out on our YouTube channel.
I watched it twice.
And
I was on the edge of my seat.
You watched. It was actually pretty crazy. And also, I've also just uploaded the first part of my vlog that I spent a little bit of time of editing, and it's going to be a multi-part series. I went to Korea and Japan, and I filmed some stuff.
Tune into last podcast if you want to hear the overview, but tune into the YouTube channel if you want to see exactly what happened as it happened.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of fun. So go check that out. But without further ado, we'll get straight into the podcast. We'll leave the topic of the show for later, because we always start our podcast out by asking each other, what media have you been consuming in the past week, and what did you drink last night?
My dude, last night, Laura and I celebrated our 2-year anniversary.
Yeah, but
we don't technically know when our anniversary is specifically. Laura might argue with that in the next room, but who knows?
Is it significant? Is it important, though? Because you've known each other for so long, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, whatever.
I personally don't think it's important what concrete date it is. I just imagine that, like, big moments in our lives are important. Like, for me, moving in together was much more of an important step than being in the 2nd-year relationship, but I'm not going to hash out that argument that I had with Laura right here on the podcast.
Right, of course.
No, but we were able to mesh up Valentine's Day because both of us were working with our anniversary, and so we went out to a super obnoxiously trendy restaurant last night.
But okay.
It's called the York.
The Yorkshire.
It's like American bistro fare.
Okay.
The interesting thing that they had there was a bone marrow dish. So they sawed a bone in half. And
was it a beef leg or something?
I think so.
And by beef, I mean cow. A cow, probably the shin or something of a cow.
Although
or
it
a
felt
lamb,
too short. It felt
perhaps.
It might have been.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's I don't
like this long.
I don't know actually. Yeah. I mean, that's the typical size, but I think you can get. I have no idea. I have no idea actually. I don't know much about bone marrow. I just know it's delicious.
I had that. That was pretty amazing. And then we ordered half a bottle of the Veuve Clicquot It's a very nice. Yeah, it's the Yellow Label. It's a nice brut from a French winemaker. A nice champagne. If you have the chance, I recommend trying it out for special occasions.
Nice.
It's a bit pricier. Like, if you're just going to buy the bottle outside, it's like $50, $60. A half bottle in this restaurant was the same price, but they ran out of half bottles.
Oh,
so they were like,
that's
we're
crazy.
just going to give you the whole bottle for the half bottle price.
Wow, very lucky.
Yeah,
Lucky,
it was
nice.
awesome. Rather than just saying that they didn't have it, they just gave us the full bottle. And I was like, awesome, it's our anniversary. This really works out. So we were able to toast to increased luck and success.
Well, I hope you
by
do
happenstance.
get increased luck and success this year.
So that was nice. It was pretty enjoyable. This past week I was working a lot, so I haven't had opportunity to do a lot of investigation of different things. I have checked out a few Netflix things. So I've come to the conclusion that I don't think Netflix puts movies out. I think they just put content out, and it's like whether it's a serial content or like a movie length content.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I think so. I agree.
they call it Netflix films, but I don't think that there's filming going on anywhere, right? There's no actual film. It's not being on the big screen. So Laura and I have gotten into multiple debates about this, and I'd like to do this on an expanded podcast format of like new media. What does it mean to be a movie? Are we actually watching films, etc.? But in any case, I watched a few things this week that I thought were pretty interesting. I watched Abducted in Plain Sight, that movie, which is fucking crazy.
What? Abducted in Plain Sight? When did that come out?
Like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. That's why I don't know. That's why. Oh, on Netflix. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it was basically this family moved in next door, or this other guy moved in next door, was infatuated with one of their daughters.
Mm-hmm.
He split up the couple in like devious, maniacal ways and was able to get to the child.
Whoa. Wow.
And abduct her in plain sight. It is, I mean, it gets way more complicated, way more weird. I don't want to necessarily spoil the whole thing, even though I don't really care because it's a Netflix movie.
Yeah.
I would recommend that if you're just playing video games and want to listen to something in the background, this is an excellent choice. Because that's how I did it.
You're so good at that, man. I really wish I had that skill. Oh my God.
I mean, most of this stuff is just there to be content that, people will listen to in the background, a la what I do. So it doesn't really matter all that much what happens.
Okay.
I think you're not supposed to necessarily watch a lot of these. Like Roma, yes, I would suggest watching that. But they also released that in theaters so people would watch it.
Okay.
And it would
Fair
get
enough.
Oscar nominated.
Yeah, that's mostly what they wanted. They want to be able to
Yeah.
contest in the Oscars, which apparently have been... We've discussed it in the past about twice, I believe. About twice. And
It's because I always try to make Julien care,
about
and
movies.
Julien never does. It's
Look,
'cause I really
care.
love movies and discussing the whole orchestration, filming, and
oh yeah, that's fun. But we
Julian's like, that's cool, but
That's
I
good.
hate the Oscars.
well, yeah,
I
it
just don't
seems
care.
like everyone does as well on social media. Anyways, the Oscars are not very popular anymore. It seems like.
But they are, because people love to argue about them.
People want them to be popular, or want it to be the end all be all of which movie was best. But it seems like everyone is trying to give their own opinion about each movie. So, and of course, that's never going to go well.
As we continue to talk about internet stardom, I mean, Andy Warhol really didn't even understand what it was. Everybody really just wants to be famous.
It's it's so true.
And
what are we doing?
So, that was a lot of what I did. In terms of new games, I played NBA 2K19.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first basketball game I've purchased for my PC because it was on sale. I also downloaded a few others.
On mouse and keyboard?
No, I hooked up a PS4 controller.
Oh, cool. Okay. That would be so
I'm not
weird,
a monster, Julian.
Yeah, that'd be ridiculous.
No, it's been pretty fun. I think that, you know, it's a basketball simulator. It's the same thing as it always is. But it's a little bit improved from the last one that I got. The last one I got was the Spike Lee one, which was like 17 for my PS4. That was okay, but this one, they expanded, like, when you trade for picks, you can protect the pick and do different kinds of multiple year contracts with overseas people, or the G League is included. So it's much more expansive than it was even 2 years ago. But I still think that it's pretty much, I mean, the game mechanics are all the same thing. The management stuff is a little bit more expensive, which is what I like, because I like to, well, I mean, I like to build my own team and kind of be the general manager of a team and build a championship roster against good computer simulated teams.
Right.
But so I've really enjoyed the ability to, like, play around with what kind of picks that I'm trading for, and it's a lot of the nitty-gritty stuff that is part of the real life NBA that wasn't really represented in the gaming, because I think it just kind of wasn't part of the ideology behind making the game.
Okay.
And so now they got the game mechanics to be closer and closer and closer to real basketball. Again, still not the same thing, but it's closer. And now they've got the management stuff to be much closer to real basketball as well.
That's
pretty cool.
Actually. Nice.
And those are the things I've been doing. I also...
Yeah.
Yeah, I have yet to finish Divinity Original Sin 2. I downloaded, after watching a Funhouse video, they played a like click novel adventure game called Innocent Witches, which was like a Harry Potter porno game.
That's weird.
And so I was just like, I wonder what this game is like, because they made it seem really, really funny. Just by what they were doing. And so I downloaded it and started playing it, and I'm afraid it gave my computer viruses, 1, and 2, because it's developed by a Russian team, and 2, it's really tedious. I played about 5 minutes at a time 3 different times and got nowhere in the story, and was That's really weird. Bored, as opposed to House Party, which even 5 minutes of gameplay is pretty fun.
That's awesome.
Okay. That was me. Headed over to you.
Well, as for me, I've been playing a lot of video games since we last talked. I mean, Kingdom Hearts 3 and Resident Evil 2 remake came out. I highly suggest you play one of them, which is Resident Evil 2 remake.
I'm definitely going to.
You definitely need to get that game.
No, yeah. Is it on PC?
It is definitely. It's on PC.
Cool.
I would definitely.
I've been watching a lot of game footage. It looks aesthetically a lot more similar to RE7, but it still maintains the core scary mechanic of RE2. Is that accurate?
I would say. I think it's So it's definitely very survival horror, in that you have very little ammo. You always feel like you have to. When you encounter a zombie, you always question whether or not you should use your ammo on it, essentially, because you never know if you're gonna find more ammo. It can be scary. It really it's an items resource management simulator, essentially, in that you have limited space in your inventory, so you have to manage which things you're picking up as well, and it's definitely
dead. Herb.
Gotta get those herbs, man. The green herbs are so good. And so basically that's a huge mechanic in the game, is managing your inventory, but also upgrading your guns slowly. You have to solve a lot of puzzles, but there's a lot of menacing, scary things in this game, and there's a lot of really cool environment. There's a lot of varied environments in the game. You go back to different areas, they've changed, that type of thing. You unlock more things. It's a really well-paced horror game, I'd say, and there's a lot of replayability in it. I don't know if you replayed Resident Evil 7, right? I remember.
Multiple times I finished through.
Right.
I didn't finish everything that I wanted to in that game because I wanted to get all of the like super upgrades so then I could get my hardcore run through done.
Right. So that's the cool thing that Capcom does with these games, and it will. I guess maybe I should have put towards the end because this sort of ties into what we want to talk about. But with the topic of the show. But this game has a lot of replayability, and it's just a single player game, and they basically make it fun to play the game again because you get to use all your guns on the second playthrough. There's a second campaign. There are 2 protagonists that you can choose to play as. You have different costumes to unlock, that type of thing. You can get better guns, etc. You can change the difficulty, and it's a lot. It's sort of an arcadey feel in that sense that you just want to keep going back in and play it. I'm still on my first playthrough. It's a really fun game though. I've been streaming.
How many hours do you think it gets through?
I've played. I think it's probably like a 20-hour game. I'm not sure, but I've played about 10 hours of it, I think, on stream. So if you want to watch me get scared, then give me a follow on Twitch.
20 hours?
Really scared. I think it's about that long. Maybe like 15 hours.
Double the length of Resident Evil 7.
I have no idea how far I am into the game. There's no progress marker when you save or anything, so I couldn't tell you. And then not to mention, I guess it's probably 20 hours in total if you want to do both campaigns. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And then you can speedrun it, obviously, once you're actually good at the game. And you could probably beat in like probably under 5 hours or something. Yeah, so I played that. I played Kingdom Hearts 3. I don't really know where... Kingdom Hearts 3 is a fun game to play, and it's a good RPG, and there's cool characters in it, but the story is really the worst. It's so unbearable.
I've heard that it was like...
it holds it back.
I've heard multiple things. One thing is that it literally makes fun of you and itself if you don't know the lore of the story. Somewhere in the story,
it's almost comical when you listen to the cutscenes and what the hell they're talking about. It's nuts. It's so obscure and stupid that it is comical. And then you throw onto the extra layer of these stupid Disney characters like Mickey, Goofy, and Donald in these weird. I don't know. They're all going around Disney World, so it's weird. It's a very strange game.
What is the point of these games?
You're trying.
As I've never played one.
I'm literally at a loss for words. I do not know, but they are fun to play. There's the combat in this game is really cool, and the graphics are great, and it's fun to go around the Disney worlds to you play through a portion of the story of these famous Disney IPs like Toy Story, Frozen, Tangled. Those are the 3 I've done. So, Hercules, what is it? Mount Olympus, that type of stuff. So if you're into that, it's definitely a good RPG to pick up. It's it's fun to play. If you're really into this story, then I hear actually that this is, a satisfying end to the story of Kingdom Hearts. But I couldn't tell you. I have no fucking clue. The other game I wanted to tell you about though, Ivan, is Wargroove. I think you would really like this game. It's a tactical RPG. Turn-based strategy RPG like Fire Emblem or Advance Wars. It really plays on the fact that Nintendo hasn't made Advance Wars, which in a long time, which is was one of my favorite strategy RPGs. This game is sort of like a fantasy-themed Advance Wars game. So you have all your units, and you're on, there's a campaign and whatever, but you have a commander, which is cool. So you have one unit that's extra powerful, and then all your other units are dispensable because you can capture territory to increase the amount of gold that you can spend every turn, or that you gain every turn, so you get more resources every turn, and then you can build units based off of how much gold you have. And so there's land, sea, and air units, which are pretty cool. So this game's also on PC. It's on Nintendo Switch, which is where I'm playing it. And it's also on Xbox and I believe PS4. And it's cross-play between Xbox, PC, and Switch, which is awesome.
That is
PC
awesome.
will have mods eventually, duh. It's PC gaming. And the coolest thing is the multiplayer is asynchronous. So you can take a turn whenever the fuck you want, and then that's the end of the turn, and then I can play a turn whenever I want at some point during the day. And you can just have it like a continuous game of, it's essentially, I guess, like chess, a continuous game of chess constantly going. So I thought, and I think it's about $20 on Steam. It's a really great game if you're looking for a little, it's a smaller turn-based strategy game, but it's also got an incredible amount of content. It has a map editor, so you can make your own levels as well, and you can make your own campaigns. I think the developers specifically said all of these tools that we've given you are what we use to make the campaign of the game. So you can make different levels that progress through, and yeah, it's really awesome. It's a fun game. That
reminds me of the game that's in development close to finishing, Dreams.
Dreams. That game should apparently come out this year. It's going to be on PS4. I definitely intend to pick it up because I do have a PSVR unit, and I would love to actually play that game and see what people are doing.
So, side note, before we use Dreams to catapult us into the topic conversation, if that's
fine.
Cool with you.
That's fine with me.
But Wargroove sounds a lot like Heroes of Might and Magic, the top-down strategy.
It might be. I've never played that. I know it's directly influenced from a game called Advance Wars, or a series called Advance Wars, but I've never heard of Heroes of Might and Magic.
Well, Might and Magic used to be a D&D kind of clone, and then they created this turn-based strategy, top-down, like the combat. You have a hero who has a spell book, and then there's a whole bunch of units that you can recruit, and then you fight on a like a hexagonal-based board.
Nice. That's actually pretty cool. Hexagonal.
And you have different units have different abilities and etc.
Nice.
So it's a similar thing, and I've played like every single iteration of the Heroes of Might and Magic franchise. So this seems like a game that's right up my alley.
I think you know what like
other game is right up my alley, because it's whatever game I want it to be. That's the game called Dreams.
Dreams, yeah, that game is in development. Media Molecule, which is the developers behind Little Big Planet, and I believe some other game that I can't think of right now, but Little Big Planet was
being the formative one.
Sort of the Sackboy is one of the mascots of the PlayStation 3. They made games for PlayStation 3, I believe PlayStation 2, if I'm not mistaken. And now they've moved on to making their most ambitious project, I would have to say, called Dreams on PlayStation 4, which will come out apparently this year. But they haven't given us a release date.
It's slated to come out this year, and Dreams is an intriguing way to breach the subject of what we're getting into in terms of the future of gaming.
Yeah.
So Dreams will have 3 separate campaigns that you can start off with. But the biggest seller for this game is the fact that you can use Dreams to design any game you want within its architecture.
Yes. So
just like in Little Big Planet, you had this wider range of ability to develop all sorts of gameplay and maps and things like that, but people got very creative with it and used it to recreate the first Zelda game and different things like that. Dreams will give you a much more robust architecture to play with in order to create all sorts of different games that you want to play. For instance, there was an example that was created by the developers, which is Don't Touch Me, where you're a character who just wants to hug somebody, and everybody that you try and come up to is basically trying to kill themselves or get away from you in order to not touch you.
Mm-hmm.
That is the kind of, and that's like a platformer game that you can develop from this. But other games will be able to be much more robust. For instance, remaking something that looks like a third-person shooter within the Dreams architecture just by manipulating what's available there. That is one major style of gameplay that we will be seeing from specifically this game, but I think will be kind of the future architecture of a certain style of game, right? We're talking about games as a platform, and this will give you all the tools to develop games within that platform. We've also heard of third-party developers trying to take the Dreams architecture and develop their own titles within Dreams, kind of.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, in the background of the video portion of our podcast, which you can get on YouTube, or you can tune in on Twitch, I have some footage playing of Dreams, of just some... This was a Dreams beta, I believe it was a closed beta, of just... These are just some of the varied environments that are possible to make in this game. And they had a Dexter's Laboratory, which was pretty cool. But now we're just walking up, I guess... I don't really know what this is, but it seems we're in a bamboo forest, and it's crazy. So the gambit.
It kind of looks like a
nuts.
Medal of Honor, that World War II one mixed with kind of arcadey.
You get the lighting from it, yeah, I guess.
Tomb Raider-ish vibe.
Right. So the limit is your imagination, right? In this game, it seems, and as you were saying, games as a platform is a common phrase that is said a lot in the video game media or coverage industry. You know, big outlets like IGN and GameSpot and a lot of journalists will use games as platform to describe a video game. And what that really means is that you have a game in place that's, you know, typically from a long-running series like Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed or all these games that have many sequels that come out every year. And the idea is that they release one game and it is continuously updated through large content drops that are possibly downloaded, and you would, as the customer, are expected to pay for that, I suppose, or it could be a free update. For instance, like Overwatch, which is, I would definitely say, a game as a platform. A lot of Blizzard games are, I would say. So Overwatch is a great example in that the way you buy the game once, and it's, I don't know, depending on when you're buying it, it was $60 when it came out. Right now it's probably like $30 to buy the whole game. And then Blizzard releases a character or a map or a game type mode, and this they release for free, and you can just download it whenever you need to, and then you continue playing the game, and the game continuously evolves over time. For instance, when Overwatch launched, it was completely different than it is now. So that's what you mean by games as platform, if anyone did not know that already.
That's an excellent explanation, and we can see this in Overwatch, in Fortnite.
Oh, Fortnite's a good example.
World of Warcraft is probably one of the more famous versions of this, right? So they're going back to releasing a new World of Warcraft vanilla so that it gets rid of a whole lot of the things that we've seen. So it's creating a whole series of, like, we built up, and now we're going back to basics. So it's quite the intriguing idea for a game to build a system of being able to make games within itself. And we take that and we compare it to what everybody has trying to be chasing lately, which is the Battle Royale realm, because people have been trying to recreate Fortnite.
Right. Yeah.
Fortnite is still, despite what most hardcore gamers would consider to be a terrible game, with the most annoying player base in the world.
I would agree.
This is a game that simply prints money. It has regularly 8 million people playing at once. via phone, tablets, console system, or PC.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's crossplay between a lot of those platforms just
all
makes
of those
it,
platforms, actually.
Yeah, all of those platforms just makes it that much more robust, etc. So we have a game that's gone like gangbusters, and people are trying to recreate that. Meanwhile, what we were talking about before with games that are really significantly robust single-player, non-multiplayer games, taking a huge hit in terms of what they can be doing, right? So we see remakes like Resident Evil 2 be pretty successful.
Yeah.
Here's the Dead Space, if you're watching the video, the Dead Space third-person kind of looking game.
That was made from in the tools of the Dreams beta. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, going back to what I was saying, the single-player games are not doing as well unless they're significant AAA franchises. We saw Red Dead Redemption 2 sell like gangbusters. And what we've seen is that even though games are doing pretty well in general, that we've had some pretty substantial layoffs, or game development companies like EA haven't met their quarter projections, and so their stocks have taken hard hits.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Oh, you're just talking about EA, right?
Well, I was just gonna give the numbers. Like,
okay,
EA's stock dropped significantly. Blizzard stock dropped from a peak of $80 in October of last year, which is what, 3 months ago now, 4 months ago.
Yeah.
To $55 a share now, and they just had to close down Z2 and King Studios in San Francisco and Seattle and lay off about 900 people in order to consolidate and reinforce their what they stated is to reinforce their projected good growth, etc. And this is a company that made like $1.8 billion across everything.
Yes.
But their projected revenue was much higher, so they had to cut some jobs and restructure so that they could readjust how they would get to the projected revenue. Because even if you're making almost $2 billion in revenue, if you're short by, I think they were short by like $1 billion of projected revenue, it's a significant thing that will shake the price of your stock.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy. Like, we're talking $1 billion. We're talking several Jeff Bezoses. Like one Jeff Bezos off from your projected revenue.
Right, exactly. So, like you're saying, there's a lot of money to be made in the video gaming industry, and there's certainly a lot of money being made in the video game industry. I believe, like you said, Activision Blizzard. When you say Blizzard, you mean Activision Blizzard, because they are currently one company, I believe. I don't know if every part of the company is officially Activision Blizzard, but I know at least a large section of those companies are merged together. And so they're making hand over fist so much money off of games like Call of Duty, which is an Activision property, and Overwatch is a huge money maker for Blizzard. And
not to mention they own Hearthstone, World of Warcraft, Candy Crush Saga.
Exactly. So these companies are making a lot of money off of pretty much. These are of course very expensive games to make, except for Candy Crush. But a lot of the games, for instance, like the Call of Duty Black Ops 4 that came out last fall, that game, they probably spent a lot of money to make it, and many people spent many months of their lives making that game. And so over the past 3 years, I believe. And so they spent a lot of time making that game, and they made a lot of money, and then they get laid off, right? So, and of course, we only get one side of it from as consumers. We only really get one side of this. It's not a unionized, and I believe a lot of people are talking about possible unionization, or bringing up the conversation of unionizing video game developers. I don't necessarily know anything about that. But as it stands, the video game developer industry is not unionized, if I'm not mistaken, and it's also a multi-country endeavor. So there are video game developers all across the world. So it's not necessarily a conversation that's as simple as let's unionize them. You can't necessarily. There's a lot of different regulations based off of whether you're in Europe, whether you're in America, Japan, etc. So that's a conversation to be had. Probably not on this podcast, but as I was saying, there's a lot of money to be made, and a lot of people are making money off of these games. I'm not necessarily sure if the developers themselves are making that much money, though. But yeah.
Right, there are some exceptions, like with how some games are published, like Activision Blizzard publishes and develops in-house.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a different. We've talked about the different revenue schemes and how that works, but I think that the reason that there's a lot more substantial talk about unionization of game development workers is just because the cycle of game development, it takes people in and spits them out at such a rapid rate, and you're not guaranteed jobs necessarily at certain studios or based on certain work. Like concept artists are held for a certain amount of time, and then once development reaches a certain stage, they're all let go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just this kind of cycle of I'm crazy busy, and then I'm out of work, and then I'm super stressed about finding the next job to be crazy busy, and then burning yourself out through those cycles of maintenance. Unionization would allow for a little bit more smooth transitions, guaranteed money, work that would last, or the option to be secure when you didn't have work, or secure to find more consistent work. That's the general goal of unions.
Yes.
In addition to providing things like healthcare when you're not on the job, and that you don't necessarily have to pay a fortune for.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things are...
Also, hello to Ouija Main. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. But yeah, as you're saying, that's a possible outcome that unionization can provide for the unionized workers. It's a possible outcome. It sounds great on paper. I'm not necessarily sure if it could possibly be implemented efficiently in the video gaming industry as just like flipping a switch. So I think it would be a lot more complicated than that. But I also don't...
It took a long time to develop unions in a lot of different industries.
Exactly.
I think the closest one to what the video game industry would be is probably something like filmmaking, where even though films are 60 to 90-day projects for a lot of the people who work on them, or even less on smaller films, a lot of the people who work on them are union workers.
Right,
so
exactly.
that there are certain guaranteed wage rates. You have access to healthcare, all those kinds of things. It's not necessarily about making sure that, people will get paid to not work or things like that, or that it'll make it more difficult for people who aren't in unions to get work, etc. A lot of the power of unions is just to be able to negotiate with larger companies in order to make sure that the workers' positions are more secure. And that's what the outcry has been for, I think, a few years now, with how just gigantic gaming has grown into like a multi-billion-dollar industry, and how hard crunch is at certain companies. And we, as a group of people who are invested in not only what awesome games are coming out, but making sure that they're coming out in a way that isn't literally splitting families and killing people due to stress and lack of time for outside projects. I would prefer to maybe have a $10 increase in how much a new game costs. Right, we've had a $60 price point on new games for multiple decades now. Maybe $10 more would guarantee work or excellent working conditions for a lot of the game developers that are developing our favorite games.
Right. So you bring up monetization of video gamings, right? So games currently now have been a full price game is never really over $60. The base game is $60 usually. And so
they've learned how to do tricks of like the ultimate edition or whatever, and you get like a game book with a concept artist, concept art or whatever,
so exactly,
to increase the price point. But it's $60 for the most part.
Right. So if you were to get the new Call of Duty that comes out this year, it's going to come out in the fall. It always does. They never miss their mark. It's going to be $60 for just the base game, on your PlayStation 4, whatever you're getting it on, and so. There are different SKUs, and now we've moved into a realm of video gaming where monetization has sort of there are two different ways publishers and developers can monetize their games, right? Nowadays, you can either make the game free to play like Fortnite and then ask for various things, for your customers to pay for various things like skins and whatever it is, I guess the season pass and the challenge to unlock challenges so they can get more skins, that type of thing. And so that's sort of the free to play market that emerged when it really emerged and became popularized when the mobile gaming market started booming. That's sort of the easiest way to get as many people into playing your game as possible, and then you can start monetizing and making money. Once they all have the game, they get hooked on the gameplay loop, and they want to play more, but you can just tell them to pay a little, pay us $1 here and there, and then you can play more. Then you can look cooler in the game. And so that's sort of the monetization strategy in free-to-play games. And we're slowly seeing this monetization strategy go into full-price games, which typically did not have this type of thing, full
previously.
in front. Previously.
Beforehand, you would get a game, and it is the game from day one.
Yeah.
Then they started doing like, okay, we're going to release this game, and there's a day one patch. Now it's, we're going to release this game, and there's a day one patch, and in order to, if you want to unlock the best weapons in the game a little earlier, there's this amount of money that you can pay. If you want to have all sorts of different access to skins or unique things, there's this. Or there's a strategy of like what EA was doing like with the Star Wars Battlefront saga, which erupted into this whole fervor within the gaming community. Like, do you want to play your favorite heroes from all of the Star Wars things?
Yeah.
Well, if you want to just play like Jar Jar Binks, he's available when you get the game. But if you want to play Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker, pay $60 or play 200 hours.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's this, because, the mobile gaming market took off, and there are many success stories in the mobile gaming market, but for instance, a game like Candy Crush makes billions of dollars every year, I would have to assume. But there are 100,000 other games that are not making any money, and they're also free to play, right? So that being said, that sort of idea was, it's possible to make all this money off of this monetization scheme that we have here in the mobile gaming market. It creeped its way into full price games, which I think personally is not is quite literally nickel and diming the consumer of the video game. And I really think it's
And we've seen it affect the way that large game publishing companies have been viewed and financially affected. EA stock has taken a huge dive based on pushback of Battlefield 5, not having new releases, etc. They've just had such bad press. They haven't been able to push out games that are significantly beneficial to their image or what they're doing. As a gaming publishing house, the only thing that saved their stock recently was the release of Apex Legends, which was a game that was being developed by the B team of Respawn Entertainment while they were working on a new Star Wars game. So it was just like, hey, we can release this new Battle Royale game while you Battlefield people who have been forced to put Battle Royale into your game after it was completely, like, it was probably well past the development stage of being able to fit in to what the, budgeting and staff was for development of a totally new game type.
Right.
Here, we're going to put this out while we wait for that. And so now things like Anthem, which took a huge hit in terms of how it was making PCs crash everything during the demo phase, the pushback on Battlefield, have taken backseat to the instinct of EA, which is prioritize short-term projects as opposed to the things that we've been pushing mega bucks into.
Right.
So I think like Anthem has taken a huge impact, and it's being released on the 22nd.
I can't believe it. Yeah, it's crazy.
And it was the main focus of not just their main stage, but they even had a conference afterwards that was exclusively Anthem focused, bringing on 3 people from the development team to be interviewed for this game. And now because Apex Legends has helped them help boost EA's stock recently because of its good gameplay, popularity.
That game's fun.
It's now the new focus.
So
it's such a really weird mindset to be so short-term focused.
I have a question for you, right? So a lot of the ways, so right, we've discussed that free-to-play market monetization has creeped its way into full-price video games nowadays, right? So the common defense for that happening is that it's just cosmetic. Or these are just cosmetic things that aren't giving you an advantage in the video game. And so the common defense for that being in place is that, these video games are really expensive to make, and, we need to make these games this way, right? So this is a way for you to help fund these games, and we need to make more money. Do you really think that these games are making too little money, or do you really think that it's necessary that we need
that to
pay for the game?
Right? And
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily the game itself, but it's the game as a platform that needs substantial revenue as it continues, right? So take a look at World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
When it reached its zenith, think about how much money Blizzard had to pump into World of Warcraft in order to maintain increased growth of server, maintenance of bugs, glitches, etc. So like developers, game developers maintaining and improving the game as it goes. Improving the game through add-ons to keep the player base interested, and all these sorts of things. So as you increase to the games as a platform, build a small game and build a game and keep people invested in that game, it's actually more cost effective than developing new cycles of new games all over and over and over again, which is why we've seen the single player market decrease in terms of games being published. Because you'll either buy the game at $60 and never spend more money in it again, basically, if it's a single player game, unless there's added on content released, or you'll buy the game used or on sale in order
and the developer doesn't see it, and the publisher doesn't see a cent if you buy it used. Yeah, exactly.
So single player games a lot of the times are just receiving a lot more short shrift by these publishing companies and developers because they can't get funding for them. And I think developing video games is pretty expensive. Think about how much money goes into developing something as robust as Resident Evil 2. Think about the development cycle of the remake of Final Fantasy VII, right? It's been in the works for a very long time.
That's never coming out.
Yeah, I can't imagine. It will come out
on the PS5.
I will finish my run through of Final Fantasy VII before it comes out.
I hope you do, because I'd be
I've gotten so
disappointed
far.
if you didn't.
It's
You got
like 20
pretty
hours in
far
or something.
Far.
So the hope of game studios is that you can make these. I think the hope of game developers rather is that you can make these larger titles, in order and kind of make them how you want them, but you can also make them in order to get like 2 for them, 1 for me kind of deal, right? So you can make much smaller scale games that are much more focused on the kind of story you want to tell or the kind of gameplay that you really want to see. And then those things can develop into much larger platforms as a separate thing, or can just be individual pieces as they are. Like Ori and the Blind Forest, when it came out the first time, not a huge scale game, right? It was an indie game. But it was so remarked upon because of its style, because of its game design and beauty and the art design, that it became a franchise now, right? It's got a sequel. So there are hopes that even if you have really indie games, you can use those to build enough credibility to get a second one or get a sequel to that first game. Something that will really allow you to be free. But I think that games in general just cost a lot of money, and so you want them to be more platforms so you can extract as much money as you can over a course of time. So like it's not just the initial investment, but it's the length of time that you go through afterwards, that you're putting in minimal development costs but maximizing how much you're buying out of it.
Right, you're right.
Do you think that a game like GTA 5 will make more money than Red Dead Redemption 2 based on the complications with the online function of Red Dead Redemption 2?
I think that GTA 5 will probably over both of those games' lifetimes, it will make more money than Red Dead Redemption 2 because it has more of an accessibility to a wider audience. I think GTA 5 does because of its theme. I mean, in reality, they're probably they're very similar games. Not if you take the themes out, they're both open world RPG-ish games that you can go do whatever the fuck you want in. But then you add in the layers of aesthetics and the themes of the game, and they become very different games, right? So GTA 5 is, it's in your face, it's pop culture, it's got rap in it, it's got all these cool songs, it's got you get whatever gun you want, whatever car you want. That's way more accessible to just jump right in and play the game. But Red Dead Redemption 2 is, much more story based. It's a masterpiece. I assume. I didn't play the game, but because I'm waiting for it on PC. But it's it's specifically cowboys. If you don't like cowboys, you're probably not going to get the game. That's right.
Yeah, and a game like GTA 5 can go as futuristic as it wants, right? They had the Tron cycles as part of one of the post-launch DLCs. And this is the reason why GTA 5 has earned $6 billion. And the company that released it, the same company, right? Rockstar Games, released Red Dead Redemption 2, but it has, I think, built into it some limitations on how far it can go in terms of releasing new content, how much attraction it can have, like you were saying, with the modern versus cowboys and cowboys era technology, interest, theme. So I just find that even though Red Dead Redemption 2 is newer, probably has a better everything in terms of graphics, gameplay, kind of mechanical smoothness to it than GTA 5 would have when it launched, Red Dead Redemption 2 won't have the tail cycle that GTA 5 will. And so GTA 5, Minecraft, Fortnite are these like immense games that are, I think, uncopyable, but every game developer or every game publisher is like, how do we push game development in a way that we can get these games in our library?
Yeah.
And I just don't think it's doable. And so I think when you have more creative outlets like Dreams to completely revamp it, or when you do have really good single player campaign games that are kind of a niche market that really can be exploited, I think those are the areas where you give them slightly less budget, but you push out these games, and I think that they can be moneymakers in and of themselves, and there's a market that is requesting it. Like,
Right.
Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, and people were like, yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2, I can be a cowboy in the Old West. And then they played the online, and they're like, this kind of sucks. And maybe Rockstar will be able to fix it.
It'll probably be fixed. GTA, if you remember, GTA 5 online launched after the game launched, and it was also very buggy, and they had a lot of trouble initially, and then now look at what it is now. So it's one of the most popular games. So
there's a possibility. I just don't think it's as great.
I think
that there are some milestone games that we will have, and they generally tend to be games that either perfect something or just kind of revolutionize how things are
played. And you're right. So the video game industry is very trend based. If you haven't noticed, I mean, you obviously have, and so that I think that's what we can possibly end on is that, this is a trend in this industry right now. We have $60 games as a platform that are set in place for about the developers want you to and publishers want you to play the game for possibly a year, 2 years, 3 years, a long time, right? They want you to keep spending money on the game until the next big game comes out. And so this is a current industry trend. Loot boxes were huge. Season passes are still huge, that type of thing. And it could be a trend in that's the direction we're going. It might be here to stay, but I think that the video game industry shifts very, every generation, really, I think. So we'll see how it goes into, and by generation, and we really mark it by console generation for whatever reason. So when the PS5 and the Xbox quote-unquote Scarlet comes out, we'll see what video game developers come up with new tools that they're given. And so I think it seems like it's here to stay because the market is clearly dictating, people want to spend money on this. I don't know right, so we could go into the psychological reasons why you're spending money, and possibly you might be addicted to the game. That's a whole different aspect of what could possibly be happening, but it seems like people want to spend money, and they're not complaining. I mean, some people are complaining on social media, but they're also probably buying the loot boxes in the game as well. So the best way, if you really don't like what's going on in video gaming, you just don't buy the games, right? Don't spend the money. Buy the game, but don't spend the money after you buy the game, or buy the game used, whatever it is. That type of thing really is why the industry shifts towards trends, because one company will come up with an idea and make a lot of money off of it because people realize that the consumers really caught on to it, like loot boxes or the first free-to-play game that was successful on the mobile market. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, let's sell these things piecemeal or whatever it is. And so then other people catch on to that and put that into their game. And so that's what I'm saying. The next generation maybe will have another trend that we'll talk about next year. We'll see, or in 2 or 3 years. And so I think the best way to combat this, and the most effective way, other than shouting into the void on social media, is that just don't buy the game. You have to vote with your wallet, or whatever the phrase is. I think that's honestly the only thing you can do as a consumer, and it's just how it is. So I hope.
Well, that was well said. An interesting
Video
point
games,
made. Make sure that you vote with your wallet if you're going to not want something, don't buy it.
Yeah.
Or complain about it on social media and just don't listen to what we're saying, and that's fine too.
That's true.
This week we have gone a little more into the business of gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not so much on what the new games coming out will be that we're super excited for. So, hey, maybe we'll do that later when it's E3, and we'll talk about
E3.
What were the games that we were excited for and what were the games that we're excited for coming in the next 10 years, as E3 won't just focus on the next year of releases.
Also,
but the next 5
Sony's
years.
not going to be at E3. That's a huge difference in E3 this year. It's kind of crazy. Excited.
One less podcast for us to do.
Yes, definitely. I'm super excited to see what happens at E3, actually. And as we get older, we perceive time a lot faster. Yes, so that's what I'm trying to say. So, last year we're like, oh, it's February, but E3 is so long in the in the future. But now it's not so much further in the future as you might think, because we're getting too old. Anyways, Ivan, you can catch this podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to it. But we end our podcast every single week, unless you have something else to say, Ivan. Sorry.
No, we're okay.
We end our podcast every single week in a song in a segment called Hungover Radio. This is where you, the listener or viewer, can send in your music that you want to play at the end of the podcast because you have a band, you solo, you do your solo artist, you got a recording label, but you also want some free advertisement. We'll play your song at the end of the podcast and link you out to all the cool people. We've got 77 whole subscribers on our YouTube channel, Ivan. Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
We're gonna make it.
I can't wait until we hit 100.
100
Don't forget
or
to
bust.
subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got to keep advertising it until the day we die. But if no one picks a song, I get to pick one. So I'm going to pick this sweet song from Wargroove. It actually has some pretty catchy tunes. I like the music in the game. This song is called Dancing Crane from the Wargroove OST. Hope you guys enjoyed the song. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Of course, you can always send in your music to gaminghungover@gmail.com. You can reach us there as well, or on Twitter. All the links are in the description below. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and goodbye.
Bye.